I call to order this College Township Council regular meeting agenda, or a meeting and the agenda following, for Thursday, June 15th, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll now move on to public open discussion. This is for any item not on the agenda.
Have an announcement, Benton.
Executive session. Executive session.
Announcement.
Oh, sorry, yeah, so we did have an executive session yesterday to discuss personnel matters. And now we can move on to
Now you may move on.
public discussion. Any public discussion for items not on the agenda? Anyone online or in person? Okay. Seeing or hearing none, moving on. New agenda items. Any new agenda items that council would like to add? None? No. All right, SP1, College Township Finance Report. Mr. Robert Long, Finance Director.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you first of all for this opportunity to update the council on our financial condition here. I like to usually take a few slides to do a little deeper dive into some of our finances at the township. I know there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and some of that stuff I think is important for council to have a little deeper knowledge of it. So these first few slides are going to be just that. They're going to be a little deeper dive. We're going to start out with our employee benefit package, and I think we have a very good. I think we have a very good benefit package to offer new hires, and it's certainly a drawing card, I believe. So we have medical and prescription coverage. Now that's self-funded through the PIMIC Consortium, and it's administered by Capital Blue Cross, and the employees do pay a small portion of that, 17%. We also have vision coverage and dental coverage. We have a flexible spending account, which is administered by a company called TAS. They go by TAS, but it's Total Administrative Services Corporation. And the benefit of that plan is that it offers tax savings to employees and to the township. We also offer life and accidental death and disability. The amount that we offer or that we provide is 1.5 times basic pay, up to a maximum of $150,000. We also offer short-term and long-term disability. The short-term disability is 60% of weekly earnings, up to a maximum of $750. And the long-term we just picked up. It wasn't more than about 5 years ago or so. We had when we switched companies, we had an opportunity to get that coverage for a good cost, and we did. And so we jumped on that. We also offer supplemental life and ADD, and that's a small cost to employees. They can pick up additional beneficiaries and that kind of thing. So it's a nice little option for the employees to have. And then we have the 2 retirement plans, which is the 401 plan, which is the plan where the township puts 7.5% of the basic pay into the plan. And I think I'll do a little deeper dive on the pension plan maybe the next time I do a finance report, go through some of the principal provisions of that plan, how that works, and how the employees can choose their own investments. Then there's the deferred compensation plan, and that's 100% funded by the employee, and they can elect either a percentage of their pay or they can elect a flat amount. The percentage is nice because it goes, as your pay increases, it goes up automatically. A fixed amount, sometimes you kind of forget it's a fixed amount, and then you can get behind. So percentages, a lot of employees do take the percentage option. And then we have the next page. We have a health insurance opt-out, and that's where employees can, if they have other coverage, they can opt off our plan and then get a cash incentive for that. And that works to their benefit, works to our benefit as well. So that plan That policy was instituted, again, it's probably
10, 15 years
yes,
ago now.
yeah, so, and we do have quite a few that do take that option, and saves the township a lot of money. Then you have your longevity pay, and there's 11 paid holidays. That was 9 prior to the pandemic. There's vacation time, and it accrues each pay period, and depending on how long you've been here, how many hours accrue that pay period. Sick time is, everybody gets the same amount, it's 3.69 hours accrue bi-weekly. And personal time, same thing, 24 hours, it doesnn't accrue, it's placed in your account at the beginning of the year, and then you can just use it as needed. And if you're a new hire, then it's a prorated amount. Another nice program, it's offered through our insurance broker, or disability broker, the Employee Assistance Program. And that really offers confidential help for a wide variety of needs and concerns that employees have. And it's no cost to the employee, and it's no cost to the township either. Tuition reimbursement, that's education. We reimburse for education directly related to the township position, and that of course requires pre-approval, I should say. And then we have annual COLA and merit pay adjustments. So I think that's a pretty good package that we offer employees. And now I think I want to go into our township insurances. We carry a number of lines, and our total premium is $125,000, and for 2023, 2022 is $111,000. And that market, they call it, when the costs are going up, they kind of call it, they refer to it as a hard market versus a soft market. So I think the market is still a little on the hard side, so we might be seeing another increase come in 2024. And the line that's really kind of the line that's really has a potential of going through the roof is cyber risk, because there's so much cyber crime out there. I think when we first the last year was $8,000. This year, 2023, it's $10,100. But it offers a lot of peace of mind to management and council to have that coverage. The other big amounts are commercial package that covers all our property, and general liability, of course. That's where someone gets hurt on your property, that they sue the township or the water authority for that matter. Let's see here, and then auto insurance, workers' compensation is always a fairly sizable amount, and that premium is based on the risk that you have as an employee. Public works employees have a higher rate than what office workers do. And umbrella insurance, that covers all the liability insurance. And let's see here, the treasurer's bond, that's only $500, but it provides $2.75 million of coverage, and we set that to basically be the maximum amount of tax collection we have in our account at any one time. So if something happens to that money, it's covered. But the reason ours is $500 because we share the premium with the school district, and the school district pays the balance of that. So they pay $1,400, we pay about $500. Any questions on the insurance? Yeah, the next screen really talks about risk control and how, what we do internally to help keep those premiums down and protect our assets and our employees. We have a safety committee that meets every month. Fire protection equipment. We do regular maintenance on our structures and equipment. We have a company that we send our data to, and they actually do a facilities evaluation, and they update the values, and then we send it to the our insurance agent, and they in turn then return that into they take a look at it, analyze it, and if it's valid, then they will report that to the insurance company, and they'll increase the coverages. And this has been relatively new with Hartman, as we have quarterly meetings and with Matt, and we go over losses and we go over any new insurances that might be available and any questions we have, that kind of thing. Very important, we have written personnel and safety policies and a handbook, job descriptions, multi-factor authentication requirements, and other IT controls. I know you probably know what that's all about. That's helps protect our systems. And then we have multiple bank account safety precautions, and I'll go to that in a second here. Okay, cash investing, and I did this last year, and I'll repeat it here again this year. We have the balances in our different accounts as of May 31st. And as of May 31st, we have collected about 93% of our real estate taxes, so our accounts are up. And then those funds, together with what comes in over the year, will then pay our bills as they come due. Okay, the next page is the, and this is important as well. These are controls we have to protect the cash that's in the account, in the bank accounts. Positive pay, that's a file that's sent to the bank, and then they compare any checks that clear with the file, and then if there's a check number that clears that's being cashed that's not on that account or on that summary, then we have to talk to them and discuss whether or not it should be paid. ACH debit filter, that is where the any ACHs that are leaving our account have to be approved by us before they leave. Secondary review, that's goes hand in hand with the one above it. We as a township have always required dual signatures on checks, and we do not use any stamps. It's Adam and I sign all the checks, or if one of us is not available, another authorized signature signs. And then we're only required to invest in Pennsylvania statutory authorized investments. There's FDIC insurance up to $250,000 on each account. I should say on each bank, the separate institution. Act 72 was passed in order to protect any money in your account that's over $250,000 of the insured, that's insured. Then we do monthly bank reconciliations and daily transaction review every day. Jackie or myself or Cam gets on, and we look at what's going through the bank, and we just do a double check of that. And then I have the bond on myself, and then we have the crime and cyber liability insurance policies. And this is just another analysis of our fund balances. You see this almost every report. We have multiple funds here, and I have the fund balance that was audited as of January 1st, the balance that was as of May 31st. Again, these balances are way up because of the cash collections that we have taken in from our real estate collections. And then I had another column here. I showed the amount of the fund balance which is unassigned or unrestricted, and that's basically money that's available for operations. And then the other column is money that we have received, which has some kind of restrictions on it. Smaller accounts like fire protection, road machinery, parks, they're restricted because we actually build into our tax billings fire millage and a road machinery millage and parks millage. So that money goes into those funds, and it really can't be used for anything other than those types of expenses. Okay, the next screen. Again, this is our property taxes is a very reliable revenue source, and you can just see that we have we sent out bills totaling $2.8 million this year, and as of the end of May, we had the balance to collect was $196,000, or 7.0%, versus 8.5% last year. And then below that, I just do a snapshot of the cash that's collected. We $2.5 million and $2.5 million last year to date. Okay, the next screen here, we like to besides real estate tax, we get quite a bit of funds from these other Act 511 taxes, which are property transfer, earned income and local services taxes. And you can see that we have done very well with profits year to date with property transfer taxes, and earned income's way up. And local services taxes is down a little bit, and when Jackie comes to do a report from the Center Tax Agency in November, and this is the case before, is a lot of folks who are working from home. So that's their basis from where they're working at changes from College Township to their home, and that's where the money gets sent to. So that's kind of, I would have to say that's the explanation of why that money's down.
Bob, just a question for you. Local services, is that just 1 quarter?
That is 5 months worth. We
Okay.
get paid. We get that every. They give us a check every month.
Oh, okay, we get
Yep.
a monthly. Okay,
We get monthly
very
checks.
good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Center Tax Agency is excellent. They really are. They get their every month. We can count on that money being in the account and the reports. So, yep, we get that every month.
Great.
And then other notable revenues, we got a refund for our AFA collection costs, $18,500. So actually, their costs are 1.44%, which is down 0.13% from the prior year. And the reason we get a refund is because the agreement calls for them to take out 2.4%. So they do an actual to budget analysis, and then they return money to the tax agencies for the excess commission that was taken out. And the $62,500, that was the remaining amount for the redevelopment assistance grant that we got last year for.
It was for Summit Park. It was
Summit Park,
It was
yeah.
basically the final withholding as they went through and did the audit of the actual grant documentation. That was a completely clean audit, so they released the final withholding. That's $62,500, and as Bob referenced, that's now been passed on to Dale Summit Acquisitions to make their project whole.
Yeah, that was a very nice grant for everybody. And then the third one is $118,000 we got reimbursed for the final reimbursement, I think, for the Pike Street project, traffic calming project. Now, looking ahead, we'll have another interim financial presentation in October, and then we'll do a year-end review in February next year. Upcoming is the finalization and adoption by resolution of the CIP, and then in November and December we'll be working on the budget. We'll be developing it and then adopting it in December. Financial challenges, next screen. Inflation does continue, although it's cooled a little bit, which is good. Supply chain issues does continue. I mean, that's, again, that may be a little better, but I know Amy has an awful lot of issues with some of the things that we order for Public Works. And then, of course, there's always the challenge of attracting and quality employees when filling vacancies or new positions. We have the benefit package, and the compensation, of course, is the other prong of that. And of course, we do have a very nice facility to work with and excellent people to work for.
Nicely done.
Oh, wow.
Now, the final screen here, we have an awful lot of information on our website. We have the budgets, we have the capital improvement program, all our audits are out there. There's opportunities for public service, and when you jump on the website, first page, you get the latest township news and the events page. And then, of course, you can sign up for notifications. So I encourage everybody to get on there and check it out.
Okay, thank you. All right, questions for the finance director. Rich?
No questions, just some nice observations through the financial details. We're looking pretty good.
Okay, Susan?
No questions? Thank you for the presentation.
No questions, just comment. Thank you. Always very well presented
Thank
and
you.
organized. Yeah.
I enjoy this opportunity to do this. I don't like to speak in front of audiences, I really don't, but I really like this opportunity to do this because I get at least get a PowerPoint to look at.
Bob does a fantastic job, and while he may not like to speak in public, when he speaks, he needs to be heard, and I think that, you know, the documents that he's been able to pull together, presentation, just gives you a little bit of insight into his day-to-day and the value that he brings, and his whole department, both Kim and Jackie, bring to the township. So we're very fortunate to have them, and as you have seen, it's a very robust program, both in terms of managing HR tasks as well as the standard financial tasks of the township. So my thanks to Bob and his team.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to SP2, the MS4 presentation. Mr. Don Franson, our township engineer.
Thank you. You should have before you the memo that was put out by Jerry Northridge concerning this. The MS4 program, State College and the townships have been in this. The State College urbanized area and the MS4 program's been in place since 2003. Each year we have to do several items as part of a permit, yearly permit. One of them being a presentation to the public body concerning this year's progress with the permit. Each permit year ends on June 30th, and so we are just making it under the wire for this year's program. There's things we have to do, like the presentation to the staff. We have a luncheon where we will do, while Jerry does a presentation explaining what the MS4 program is, some of the things we need to do. We'll do a presentation to the Public Works people, and that presentation focuses mainly on identifying illicit discharges. One of the things we're responsible for is keeping an eye on our storm sewer system, making sure people aren't dumping oil down inlets. Many years ago, there was a man changing his oil at the mall, and he was changing it right over an inlet, which was pretty handy. It disappeared really quick, but I mean, those are the things we need to look for. If we find illicit discharges, we need to investigate, and if in fact any illicit discharge makes it to a water of the Commonwealth, you know, like Slab Cabin, Spring Creek, we need to notify DEP. If it doesn't make it to a water of the Commonwealth, we just have to have a report. So when DEP comes in, they may ask to look at all the reports we have for a given year, and typical year we may have one or two hydraulic fuel lines blowing on trucks and other equipment is probably the biggest, most common one. But in most cases, it's caught before it makes it to the water of the Commonwealth. So our guys in the field do a great job of identifying that and notifying us. They notify Jerry. He'll go out and investigate. Shane will go along and see what's going on there. Other things we do is we'll do presentations to interested groups. One year, the MS4 partners, which is all the center region townships, State College Borough, and Penn State, we did a presentation to engineers explaining the Act 167 stormwater program and things they need to be doing. We did a presentation to contractors one year, talking about E&S controls and other matters that they have to look at as they're doing the construction. And one year we did one to developers, so they'd understand why we're making some of the comments we do in our reviews. They sometimes think we're being ridiculous, but it's because we have a permit, and if we ignore the permit, we're in trouble. This year's cycle, or excuse me, this 5-year permit expires on June 30th, 2025. And in the last, as part of this cycle, in the last 3 years or 4 years ago, we were required to do a Chesapeake Bay pollution reduction plan. and we hired an outside firm. All the center region got together. We hired an engineering firm called NTM to do the pollution reduction plan. What they did is they modeled the area and determined how much sediment is going into the Chesapeake Bay as a result of the disturbances within the township. And we have to reduce that by 10% over the 5-year period, which ends on June 30th, 2025. And Jerry has mentioned a couple of the projects we're looking at. Spring Creek State Stream Restoration is one of them. And one of the biggest benefits is on stream bank stabilization projects. Like 2 years ago, they did the project from Hauserville Road down, I think just down to Trout Road. I don't think they went beyond that, but you get a credit for that work in reducing the amount of stream bank erosion. So our goal is 70-some thousand pounds per year, and you get 115 pounds per linear foot for stream bank stabilization. So it adds up pretty quick. One of the things that you have to have, though, is if you're going to take credit for it, you have to have control of the stream bank. Now, we have our park down there. Obviously, we control that stream bank. There's a project, Clearwater is looking to purchase a property that has a lot of stream bank along it. We're looking to get some kind of an easement that would be a perpetual easement that would allow us to go in and do any repairs to that stabilization that's been done. So if you have control of the stream bank, you could take credit for that. So that's one of the things we're looking at. A slightly different project is the Penn Hills Basin retrofit. It has an outlet structure with the orifices at different heights. If we close off those orifices somewhat, it makes the water pond longer. And as the water ponds in longer, you get some more sedimentation. So we can get credit for sediment reduction by reducing the flows out of the basin. And then there's another project he lists, the Spring Creek Park restoration, which would be a pretty significant pounds per year credit. So we're working on those. Jerry's working on getting the easements in place for areas we don't control. Another place we do control, Slab Cabin Park. There's some areas there that could be done. There was a project done by Penn State. It's not on our official list here, but it's a possibility. They did some stream bank stabilization just above the duck pond. There was some pretty severe erosion there. It looks like they're processing it now to see if they can get the credits for that. And if they do, they will have excess credits, it appears, and they may be willing to sell some of those excess credits to some of the other municipalities. We're in fairly good shape, but we may need to purchase some of those credits also. And then there was the project which was just discussed not too long ago, Millbrook Marsh. There may be some ways we can get some credits there. That money has some grant money, or that project has some grant money tied up with it that may make that not possible. So the one thing with the DEP is they've put these in place, these requirements, but not many people have actually proceeded yet, so they're not really sure how they're handling the actual calculations and the approvals. So we're still up in the air a little bit to determine what they're going to allow and what may not work. So it's a work in progress. I think that pretty much is my presentation.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Don. All right, questions or comments for Don? Susan?
No, I don't have, I guess the only question I have, you talked about the credits, and I didn't quite understand what the credits were for.
Okay. Like I said, with the study that was done by NTM, the Chesapeake Bay Pollution Reduction Plan, said that we're contributing 77,000 pounds of sediment to the Chesapeake Bay in a given year. And so we have to reduce that number by 10% by the end of this cycle.
Okay.
And it's possible the next cycle will be another 10%. But so we have to reduce it by, and that may be the 10% number. I'd have to look at it again, but
Yeah, I
with
think it
each
was-
project, we get a reduction.
I see.
I think the 77,000 is what we have to reduce,
That's
not the
10%,
total.
yeah.
Yes.
So it was about 700, it was in the vicinity of 700,000.
Yeah, so we've identified a couple projects. If these all get approved and we're able to get all the right-of-ways we need, we're good for this cycle.
I see.
And then, if in fact, next cycle, they say 10% more, we got to find some more projects.
So based on the project, they give you X amount of
Right.
credits and say the credits equal
Yeah.
what we think would be your sediment.
And what it comes down to is they'll do their assessment of a particular
Yeah.
stream and say, okay, in that area that you did, we're going to agree that there's 150 linear feet that is being improved. So you multiply that 150 by the 115 pounds per foot, and then that's what the credit is.
Thanks.
Or at least that's the way we hope they calculate it. Like I said, no one in this region has has had an approved project yet. I shouldn't say hasn't submitted, but nothing's been approved yet.
Penn State will be the first.
Yes,
So
should
more
be.
remains to be seen.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll go next. I had two questions. You had talked about illicit discharge. So for instance, if I'm a resident here and I identify that, oh wow, I have an illicit discharge, I mean, are there steps that I can take to help mitigate that I should be taking? Should I be contacting the township? How should that work?
The first thing I do is contact the township and we could
Yeah.
verify, is it really illicit discharge or isn't it? Like, to go back a little bit, one of the illicit discharges is water from car washing. If you're using suds while you wash your car, and I don't know anybody who doesn't, and that water goes into an inlet, technically that's an illicit discharge. Pull your car up into your yard, let it infiltrate through the grass. But technically that's one, but over the years, we've found shampoo, paint's a common one. They rinse off their brushes into an inlet. What is the best one?
So I shouldn't be taking my paintbrushes and actually rinsing them off in the stream. There's probably no.
That's not a good idea, no.
Frowned upon.
Yeah, it's.
That's definitely
Not
illicit
good.
discharge.
Yeah, so I mean, those are the kind of things that we run into. Paint's probably the most common.
Do we have educational materials on our website as
Yes,
well
we-
for residents?
We do have information on illicit discharges. I know we have the car wash.
Yeah.
And, everyone asks, every time I say that, people say, well, that's just ridiculous. I'm going to get arrested for washing my car and having the water go into the street. Well, I won't say this in public, but we're not out enforcing that right now. We don't have police up and down on Saturdays looking for cars being washed in the street. But we do have the DEP fact sheet on that,
Okay.
on our website, I believe.
Okay.
And in our ordinance, it lists all the illicit discharges.
Right there. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Thank you.
Dun, dun.
Perfect. Okay, and then my second question, I just was hoping you could kind of give a little more detail about what what may complicate the allocation of credits if the project funding source is from a Commonwealth grant. Is it specifically in the
I
grant?
don't understand, well, I do somewhat understand. What they're looking for in the Chesapeake Bay, there's 3 pollutants: sediment, nitrogen, and phosphorus. All DEP's making us reduce is sediment. And the reason for that is the sediment, nitrogen and phosphorus are bound to it. So if you reduce sediment, you're reducing nitrogen and phosphorus. Some other projects, all they're looking at is nitrogen and phosphorus. So if you do a project and you're already getting credit for the nitrogen and phosphorus, DEP in the past has said, well, you can't sell your sediment credits to the township because the whole theory being, if we reduce sediment, we're reducing the other 2. So that'd be double dipping on the other 2. And I think that's probably what that is all about. And I'm not 100% sure, but that has been something that's gone back and forth a few times. And right now, right now, it appears that that's the case. If somebody's already taking credit for nitrogen and phosphorus, we won't get the sediment.
Okay, thanks. Rich?
Yeah, the MS4 is ongoing and will be for the foreseeable future.
Now, forever and ever.
And hopefully we can continue to make progress towards it as long as the line doesn't keep running away from us.
And just real quickly, one of the things we have is there's a pollution or a public involvement and participation program, the PIP, and the Public Education and Outreach Program, PEOP. And one of the things we can take credit for is the Spring Creek Watershed Commission, our membership on that, the money we contribute to it. So the Spring Creek Watershed Commission helps us out with our requirements on the PIP and the PEOP.
Easier said by you.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, excellent. All right, I think we'll move on to reports then. Manager's update.
Thank you. I'm going to come back and ask Lindsay in a moment here to kind of bring us up to date a little bit on the planning for the Charrette. But in the meantime, the only specific thing that I wanted to bring to council's attention is the solar power purchasing agreement yet again has been pushed. There's not a meeting now scheduled until July 23rd due to delays in the legal review. So that project continues to, well, I guess languish in legal review. Hopefully they'll be able to bring that to a head at this meeting that's now scheduled for July 23rd. At that point in time, and Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that they had anticipated sharing contracts at that point.
Yeah, that's the intent. As once the solicitor review is done on this, the intent is to share to the working group the contracts with the two vendors that ultimately then come before each of the elected bodies and other members of the solar power purchasing agreement group to get their final approval. So you remember we talked about percentages that you were looking at. We're moving towards that decision point. It's just been, that line that keeps getting edged out due to some delays with solicitor reviews.
Okay, thanks. Lindsay, you want to bring us up to date on our Dale Summit area plan and the Charrette and form-based code and all those kinds of good things?
Sure thing. So on Monday, June 19th, it's the first day of the Charrette. It runs through Thursday, the 22nd. Monday night is the opening presentation. So that is kind of, an important part of the Charrette, the kickoff. And then just throughout the week, we're going to be having topic meetings, including zoning and land use, transportation and infrastructure, marketing, parks, trails, and schools. We had a pre-Charrette about 3 weeks ago, and those stakeholders are doing their work and sharing the word around. Staff went out earlier this week actually, and put flyers around the township, and we noted at the Strawberry Festival and for the folks in Lamont that we were going to have the Charrette. We talked to people at the mall. We have it up on Facebook and our website, and DPZ will be here in full force with their team. They have about 12 members of their team coming. So this room will be busy, and we really hope that a lot of people come and take part in the Charrette.
And it's important to note that people are expected to kind of come and go. They're not, if you're in the Charrette, you're not in it for 4 straight days.
Exactly. Thank you. That's very
And
important.
it's open to the general public.
Yes.
You don't have to be a developer or have a particular land interest in the area.
No, we want everyone in the general public to come, the whole community. If you live in College Township, if you drive through, work, shop, play in Dale Summit, we want to see you and we want to hear your input.
Just to build on that real briefly, as Lindsay mentioned, at the bottom of the website under key projects and initiatives, we're going to have Dale Summit revitalization there. It's a section of the website. When you click on that, it takes you to discussion about the redevelopment plan, again, some information about the upcoming charrettes, including the schedule, as well as form-based code. So it's kind of our clearinghouse location on our website for information about what the township's doing to revitalize Dale Summit.
And the closing presentation is Thursday evening, starting at 5:30, and from the results of the week, they'll be presenting the results of the entire week that evening. So that's an important one to hit up to.
I do have one more thing. I'm very saddened to mention that within the past week that we've lost a very key person in the township. Jan Clauser in our Public Works Department passed away last week. He was a 35-year employee of College Township, very active, very skilled. Quite a bit of the woodwork that you see around the township, in this building, elsewhere, were at and by Jan's hands. And I just wanted to express on behalf of staff, behalf of council, on behalf of all of College Township, heartfelt sympathies to the family. Jan will be missed, and I'm sorry to have to report that. So that's everything that I had, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think we all share our condolences with the family of Jan. Okay. COG Regional County and Liaison Reports. I know we had a couple meetings between the last time we met, and we have written reports submitted. So if you have anything to add to that, or if you did not submit a report, go ahead. We'll start out with Rich.
There was a joint finance and facilities meeting on the 8th. You're going to see most of what was on that agenda at the general forum or here in council. Those consist of the comments for the 2024 or the 2024 to 28 capital improvement plan. We'll be seeing the 2024 program plan that should be referred out of the executive committee next week to the municipalities. You'll be seeing a budget amendment request for the Parks Recreation Governance Facilitator, and then also seeking approval to enter into a 5-year agreement with Iron Mountain for document storage and everything. Public safety might have seen this in that there's state requirements for keeping documents, and they don't keep getting less. Eventually we'll get them all digitized, but till then, this reduces the rate risk as one vendor has gobbled up all the competitors and the rates have followed. So this will lock in the rates for 5 years.
Okay. Susan?
I attended the COG Public Safety Committee meeting on the 13th. We reviewed the 2024 project plans, 2 of them for emergency management services, 3 for code, and 2 for the fire protection. That's listed in my report. There weren't really too many outstanding revenue changes or anything like that, expense changes. But it was mentioned again, the 4 positions that are being requested, the combination fire inspector and firefighter position. 3 of them are being requested. There is 1 existing position that's open that will be filled. So that will come up. That was something on one of Walt's reports. And that's all detailed out in my report. We talked about the Code Red alerting system. They do a test every year on May 15th, and if you're not on the Code Red alerting test system, you can be. So you can go on the COG, I think, let's see, you can get it on the App Store, actually, the Code Red app, and then also the COG emergency management page. There's a Code Red button, and I included the link to that in my report. So that will give you, it gives you all kinds of things that you can personalize as far as emergency announcements that you'll get on your phone. And they did do an exercise, a test exercise, and of all the registered devices, 78% were active, so they were able to reach 78 phones, emails, text messages. So he did encourage us to share the word on that if you don't have it. And then also I enclosed a fireworks safety kit, a media kit for announcing fireworks safety. There was a PDF, a handout on fireworks safety, so that was included in my report.
Yeah, we also have a new fireworks store. So
Well, that's why I included in my report. I thought fireworks might become more of an interest for the township, so
Very
it's that
nice.
season, so.
Anything else? Okay. I had an HR committee meeting last week. I did submit a written report this afternoon. Kind of slipped my mind with other reports being due. The biggest takeaway from that is that we finally got the finalized class and comp study. Staff presented an implementation plan to us. There was support, majority support, and then everyone supported the study, accepted the study and forwarded it on to the executive committee for review. We approved that, however, we did not support unanimously nor did we take action to accept the implementation plan. There needs to be vetting out, and there will be throughout, so you guys should start seeing that. That'll eventually come out to general forum. I personally had requested that staff and they had done this, they shared this with me, they had gone through about 7 different courses of action. But they'd only presented one, and I think you need to present a couple before folks say, hey, this is something we accept. So I urged them to kind of bring in at least one more course of action to present. But that's the biggest takeaway from that. I know Eric had submitted a report for a Lucy meeting that he attended almost 2 weeks ago now, right, or at the very beginning of the month. And then Carla had submitted a Climate Action Sustainability Committee report that was just attended as her last attendance in that committee, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so those written reports are online and can be reviewed. Moving on, staff, PC, and other committee reports. PC?
Sure. Well, good evening. I apologize. I just had some sinus surgery, and so I'm not sure how my voice is. A little bit foggy.
You sound great.
Sound great.
It's not used to alcohol or drugs. It's just really.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
I'll put that in my notes.
Okay. Okay. First of all, we looked at MB-1, the residential rental ordinance, and that was a very clean discussion. We approved in spirit the whole amendment, the preamble to the ordinance. We did make one recommendation on a date, but that discussion went rather quickly, and I think the ordinance is well prepared for the mission, I guess, or the mission that the township is asking for. The other one is a little bit interesting. I'll try to be brief, but it had to do with, of course, the EPZ code design update and pre-Charrette. We actually had a really good discussion. I was a little nervous about it, but I think that it was fairly well represented, that we really did not have an issue at the moment with council. We understand the information you were presented, and there's confusion a little bit on the processes. I would have to be honest to say to you that our perception as a committee, the Planning Commission, was that staff rushed that recommendation to council a little bit too early. Our recommendation was to hold off until the Charrette. And as you'll see or experience in the Charrette, there's a lot to be learned about options and so forth. and also zoning questions. I believe there's an afternoon that's going to be totally into zoning. And I know there's confusion there because we're confused as to how that's all going to play out. And I think we heard a little bit that council has some questions about how's this all going to interpolate and be processed. We're looking forward to the Charrette. I think it'll be very productive. I don't know if any of you have sat through a Charrette before, but what it really can be is projections of ideas and plans graphically on paper, discussion back and forth, and then maybe some conclusions that can be brought forward to developing a physical image plan, which we're hoping at the end of Thursday will be presented. So that's my report. Any questions, concerns?
Questions, council, concerns?
Thank you for the written report.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
thank you.
Thank you, and I hope you're feeling better.
I do too.
That's my
Thank you.
concern.
All right, staff, anything that, any alibis? Oh, yes,
just
assistant
one-
manager's report.
That's right. Just one quick note, because it's a continuation from the discussion at the last meeting.
Yeah.
You'll recall, I came before you with an update about the application to DCNR for our C2P2 grant for Spring Creek Park court rehabs. At the time, the final cost estimate was still a little in flux as we worked back and forth with DCNR. So we asked you to approve a funding commitment letter of up to $175,000. This week, that final project cost has come into light. It was $306,000 is the total project cost. So just to make council aware, the funding commitment would, on your end for a 50-50 match grant would be $153,000. DCNR is aware of that. That's been passed on through their chains. So now we sit back and wait and hope that we're one of the lucky selected grant awards.
All right, awesome. All right. Okay, so I know we've been anxiously awaiting the DEI reports. So diversity, equity, and inclusion reports. I'll go ahead and just pass the mic back to you, Mr.
Sure.
Bloom, to kind of introduce this.
Two items for council's information under DEI this evening. The first is to acknowledge the upcoming federal holiday of Juneteenth, which is Monday, June 19th. As I'm sure council is aware, that is the oldest commemoration marking the true ending of slavery in the United States. So just wanted to, on this evening, your last meeting in advance, acknowledge that upcoming holiday. The second item is something that's actually in the consent agenda this evening. It's Resolution R2318, recognizing June as Pride Month. Wanted to call that out, obviously, under this category, and also acknowledge in the room with us this evening is Kevin Kassab. Kevin is from the Center for LGBTQA Support. And I know he has some prepared comments for council this evening as well. And then I also acknowledge Susan from council bringing this forward as a discussion at last month. So I'll stop there and kind of at your discretion, Dustin, let you take that forward.
Yeah, sure, actually, yeah. Mr. Kassab, would you want to make some comments at the mic?
Well, first I'd like to thank Susan and the supervisors and staff and the citizens of College Township for this opportunity to talk a little bit about the Center LGBTQ+ Support Network. What I'll do is just, we don't have much time, so what I'll do is pretty much read through a little bit about us. First, we'll talk about our mission. The mission of the Center LGBTQA Support Network is to bring the community together through LGBTQ education, advocacy, activities in the Center region. And a little bit about the Center LGBT Support Network. The Center LGBT Support Network, CLSN, was founded in August of 2014. A group of community members got together to discuss reviving PFLAG, which is Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. the group decided that we wanted to create a grassroots organization centered around enhancing the lives of LGBTQA plus members and their friends and families. CLSN started with open mic nights at Webster's in the downtown, at a community business fair. From there, much of the CLSN's growth has come as a response to the community members' requests and needs. Teenagers asked for activities, and the annual True to Youth Summit was born. The ongoing Bring in Your Own Queer BYOQ youth group followed. People asked for support groups, and the CLSN offered two, one for LGBTQA+, and one for the loved ones of LGBTQ+ drag, and the LCN offered drag bingo was added, the gala party, movie nights, wig makeup workshops, the out of the closet clothing closet, and much more. The CLSN committed to working with the neighbors to create inclusive Center County. We have partnered with environmental groups, women groups, Muslim, Jewish, and Christian groups, showing up for racial justice, SURJ, and others in the efforts to foster in cooperation and improve the lives of all vulnerable individuals living within our community. So a little bit, I'll give you some ideas of some of the things, or the really positive things that have come out of the support network. One of our biggest things is our Pride event, which we just finished last weekend. This is the third year that the Pride event has occurred in the downtown area, and it ended up being 3 to 4 times larger than the first. I don't know numbers yet, but there had to be at least 3,000 individuals in the downtown. Everybody coming together, enjoying themselves, and celebrating diversity within the State College community. The other thing is the support network has expanded, and the other thing that came out of the Pride event was the announcement that this LGBT support network will be opening the first LGBTQ+ center in Center County in August. So we'll obviously be sending out invitations for the open house, and College Township will clearly be on that list to receive an invitation. Along with that, a lot of the aspect of supports, it's been brought to our attention that specifically our youth and specifically our transgender community, as we all know, if you're watching the news, the transgender community is really being attacked at this point. They really need our support. They need someone to talk to, someone to hear them out. And sadly, if you look at the statistics, the suicide rate for teenagers, specifically transgenders, is off the charts at this point. They're, unfortunately being attacked in a negative way, and they really need the community to come together to again, be a listener, and to help them through really difficult decisions moving forward. So that's pretty much about that. And then the other thing I was going to just talk about is Susan and I talked a little bit. As we all know, we have the borough and the other townships, but we're all one state college. And obviously, the center will be representing the complete Center County, which will include College Township. So we, I'd like to see, and everybody's making an effort, and I kind of know some things that College Township has planned and wants to do, and those are just great things on other townships coming to the plate. Just to give a little bit of what the borough did, and a little bit of my past. One, I'm newly retired, but I was employed by the Borough State College for 35 years. So I've kind of lived through the LGBTQ+ transformation. As 35 years ago, roughly about the same time, Arnold Addison was our mayor, and actually the borough was way ahead progressively and enacted the Fair Housing Ordinance about 35 years ago. So that's pretty amazing for Central PA. So the borough's been on track. And again, I know townships are on track too. It's just obviously the borough seems to be the central place where people come and really come to council and say, we need help, we need to do these things. So the other things the borough's done, and some of the supervisors may be already familiar with this, we initiated banners to be displayed during Pride throughout the downtown. The banners were paid for by an outside resource, not by the borough. The borough does put those banners up every year on the 1st of June, and they stay up until the end of June. A couple years ago, we did the crosswalks on Allen Street in Calder. Well, we brought that back this year. So those are in existence, and they'll remain in place throughout the year. So we're pretty proud about that. Also, the borough has a specific advisory board, LGBTQ advisory board. And I actually was the staff person for that. The new staff person for that will be Chaluvia Zulo, who is our new DEIB director. So she'll be, taking on that goal, and I'm sure she'll be doing a great job with that. That's a little bit where we are. Again, I said we're all state college, so it would be nice if, proclamations and other recognitions were done across the board at the same time in uniform to support our LGBTQ community. So that's pretty much what I have to say. If the supervisors have any questions, Susan has my cell phone number. I'm always available to answer any questions or to speak to any residents in College Township. So that's about that. But I did hear that you said something about, you talked about Juneteenth, and I wanted to be sure you all knew that actually the support network, along with the Borough State College, will be hosting the State of LGBTQ plus community at the State Theater Tuesday, June 20th at 6 p.m. And then the next Wednesday, June 21st, will be a breakout session that anybody attending that panel would be able to attend to answer more further questions. It's free admission. There'll be a lot of discussions on, the state of the LGBTQ community. So I can send Susan this announcement if you don't have it. So that's what I have. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kasab. Okay, so we'll read the proclamation, and Susan's going to do that. Beforehand, does council members, anybody have any questions or comments to Mr. Kasab?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah.
Sure, anytime.
A resolution of the Township of College, Center County, Pennsylvania, to recognize June as LGBTQ Pride Month. Whereas in June of each year we celebrate lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, LGBTQ plus Pride Month to commemorate the Stonewall riots that took place in June of 1969 and are recognized as a catalyst of the movement for LGBTQ plus rights. Whereas all College Township residents should be able to live and work in a safe and inclusive community free from discrimination. And whereas our LGBTQ plus community members are integral contributors to our social, civic, economic, artistic, cultural, spiritual, and academic vitality in the State College area and Center region. Recognizing and valuing the uniqueness in each of us empowers all of us. And whereas we recognize that discrimination and exclusion continue to exist in the daily lives of LGBTQ plus individuals, and whereas College Township is committed to protecting the civil rights of our LGBTQ plus community members, and we stand in solidarity with the LGBTQ plus Americans in their ongoing struggle against discrimination and injustice. Whereas the College Township Council and staff remain committed to ensuring that policies and practices do not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the Township of College, Center County, Pennsylvania, that we hereby recognize the month of June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month. duly adopted this 15th day of June 23rd by the Council of the Township of College Center County.
Yeah, and just as a point of order, that is in the consent agenda, so we'll approve it officially then, but we just wanted to bring it out at this time in the agenda and read it. Okay?
Do I present it to him?
Yeah?
Do I present it?
Yeah?
Yes?
Sign it.
Yeah, we present, yeah.
Sign it?
First
Yeah.
and then. Not quite adopted.
Yeah.
This is the pre-adoption presentation, or do we have to wait till we're adopted?
Yeah, we probably need to adopt it.
We're gonna have
Okay.
to adopt it.
You're going into that.
Can I have a motion to accept the resolution?
Are we gonna approve it as part of the consent agenda or separate?
But the intent was just to approve it as part of the consent agenda, and then we can, work it, but, yeah, we usually do a photo op, don't we? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So let me go ahead and just move right to the consent agenda. We'll come back and do the photo op right after the consent agenda. Okay? All right, so we're gonna move on to consent agenda. Consent agenda tonight consists of CA1A, which are minutes from May 30th, 2023 Joint Council PC meeting. CA1B is the June 1st, 2023 regular meeting minutes. CA1C is the June 5th, 2023 special CIP meeting minutes. And CA1D is the June 7th, 2023 special CIP meeting minutes. CA2 is correspondence and receipt of the following. CA2A is email from Andrew Schaefer dated May 30th, 2023 regarding the casino. CA2B is a letter from the Special Olympics dated May 9th, 2023 regarding the sponsorship thank you. And CA2C is an email from Cub Scout Pack 67 dated June 2nd, 2023 regarding a thank you. And CA2D is a letter from HRG dated June 6, 2023 regarding a time extension to the Mountain Indy Bed Tower LDP to October 3rd, 2023. CA3 is action items and approval of. CA3A is the cancellation of an advertised July 6, 2023 CT Council meeting. And CA3B is resolution R-23-18, that is the LGBTQ plus Pride Month proclamation resolution. Yes. All right, do any council members wish to pull an item from the consent agenda? All right, hearing no wishes to pull any, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The consent agenda is approved. We could pause for a photo op with the resolution if we want.
Kevin, I think that Sue would like to make the presentation of the signed resolution.
Yeah.
Move it out of that TV range. There we go, that's better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. All right, to old business, OB1, ordinance O-23-04, the Center Region Rental Housing and Building Safety Code. All right, Mr. Broombaugh.
Yes, thank you. As you know, council has, let me start over. As you know, we had previously discussed the modifications to what is commonly called the Center Region Code, specifically the Rental Housing and Building Safety Code. Periodically, every so many years, there are modifications, changes to national standards that ultimately are adopted here by our local or within our local code. And this is the 2023 edition of those changes. I believe that the last iteration of this was at 2019? 2017. So as last time, Dr. Walt Schneider of Center Region Code was present to introduce the topic to council. He has made a command return performance here a little earlier on the agenda this evening than he was the last time.
We made him sit for a while last
And
time.
yes, he did his penance, but I'm very pleased that Walt is here this evening, basically to answer any questions. Essentially, the most significant addition, I believe, was section 1.06.
101.6. 101.6 was added.
101.6, which dealt with tenant rights.
Correct.
Was added, and Dr. Schneider had alluded to that at his last conversation with council. That is now in the code. The purpose here this evening is for council to have any discussions about the code, ask any questions of Walt, and ultimately set a public hearing for the adoption of the code, that date being July 20th of the coming month. So without further ado.
Okay, all right,
back
so,
to you.
yeah, your packet has a recommended motion. So we'll move on to questions first. We'll start out with Rich.
Yes, Dr. Snyder, could you, is there anything that really stands out as College Township specific? Or is this
No.
center region?
This is really center region. Those things in the draft ordinance that was provided to the manager are consistent with the previous adoption, the 2017 edition. We basically mirrored those modifications that College Township has done in the past. There's nothing that really steps out that is College Township specific beyond those.
Great. Just wanted that clarified. Thank you.
Susan?
I have no questions. I reviewed it, and that was my question, what's specific to College Township, so thank you.
Okay. I also have no questions, so entertain a motion.
I'll move to set a public hearing on ordinance O-23-04, amending chapter 152, property maintenance and fire code of the College Township Code for July 20th, 2023.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It is seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right, the motion is carried. Has
Thank you for your
passed.
time and your support.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, moving along to OB2, the Shiloh Road zoning amendment. All right, so Ms. Shoke, Lindsay.
Thank you. I'm here tonight to continue the discussion on the Shiloh Road zoning considerations. I'd like to start, next slide please. I'd like to start with a brief overview of where we've been. First, it's important to note that when DPZ came under contract with the township, interim zoning changes were integrated into the contract. And at that time, we didn't know what those changes would look like, but I think we're starting to get a better idea of what those look like now. But shortly after we are under contract with DPZ, Pentair Engineering proposed a request to rezone a portion of the planned residential business district, or I'm sorry, planned research business park district at Shiloh Road. This request was discussed by the Planning Commission, ultimately ending with the Planning Commission recommending denial of the request. Staff moved to the proposal forward to the same recommendation to council, noting the Planning Commission's recommendation. Council discussed this, and as a result of the Planning Commission's recommendation, requested staff to reevaluate including R3 uses in the planned research business park district with further controls. Next slide, please. So it's important to note that this discussion has been ongoing for a few months now. But that's bringing zoning changes to the forefront of the discussion, which is important at this time because we're in the process of redeveloping Dale Summit. And also remember, the Charrette is coming around next week, where the vision of Dale Summit will be considered as a master plan is being developed. So next are your proposed options. Provided in your packet, we put in a few options. The first is to include R3 uses in the planned research business park district by way of a conditional use, while applying the recommendations that DPZ suggested to the planned residential development ordinance. Thank you. The second option requires minimal changes, but would permit R3 in R3 by allowing them as limited uses in the PRBD. So first, the next slide outlines some pros and cons if we permit R3 uses by conditional use. Not just R3 uses, that would include duplexes, townhomes, and multifamily residences. This ordinance change points the developer to the planned residential district ordinance, but only as it relates to residential uses in the planned research business park district. It does, however, also incorporate the existing PRD provisions with the addition of DPZ's recommended changes. So some of the pros. With conditional uses, of course, they require additional advertising, adjacent property owner notification. It allows the Planning Commission and the Council to both attach reasonable conditions to any such decision. And it also applies those recommended changes to the PRD from DPZ. So we're allowing that shift then from development of the existing zoning toward a more form-based zoning. But some cons are the conditional use process, because it can be long, it can be cumbersome, and slightly expensive. And also the PRD requirements are going to apply only to R3 uses set forth in the planned research business park district. Go ahead, next slide. As I mentioned earlier, staff at the time of hiring of DPZ didn't know what those interim changes would look like. But with the recent recommended changes that DPZ made to the PRD ordinance, we're starting to see how those are forming. Some examples include increasing density, adjusting setbacks, more prominent block standards, and perimeter requirements. And there are some others listed there. You see on the right, the image is the difference between rear-loaded and front-loaded townhomes. What DPZ is recommending in the PRD ordinance are the front-loaded townhomes. Are the rear-loaded townhomes on the left, where the garages are in the back, so you can walk and feel more, I guess, neighborly when you're walking there in front of the windows rather than in front of everyone's garage doors. So the next option would be to permit R3 uses by limited uses. Limited uses are already established in the PRBD zoning section of the zoning ordinance. This change would be minimal, but it may need to be studied further to determine an adequate percentage, which we'll get to here in a little bit. For example, we'll get to this in the next slide, but currently the requirement for limited uses is 35%, and 35% of the established floor area ratio, which is determined by the preliminary plan or the master plan. So some pros and cons of this are minimal ordinance changes. It limits the percentage of residential development, but it also allows retail, office, hotels, and et cetera as limited uses. And then the cons, of course, are the 35% of the established floor area ratio, and this does not apply any controls through the PRD. So to give you a better understanding of what 35% looks like, this slide represents a development with a floor area ratio of 0.40. If we permit R3 uses in the planned research business park district via limited use, this is how much space housing would take up on the lot. So we incorporated 35%, 85%, and 100% for comparison. Those are all applied to a 35-acre lot, which is the minimum lot size in the planned research business park district.
We don't have that graph in our packet.
No, you don't. This is just in the PowerPoint.
Is there any way you can zoom in on that? It's really hard to see it. Or just explain the graph a little bit more.
Okay, so yeah, I can explain the graph.
Yeah, if you have a laser pointer, do we have a laser pointer on the mouse? Well, you need to use it on the PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, the laser pen. Yeah.
Okay, so this bottom one first, the blue line represents the 35-acre lot. The orange line is a one-story building and how many acres that could take up, which is about 4.9, thank you. The gray, that's 2 stories, and if you had a 2-story building, it would take up 2.45 acres. And then if you went up to 3 stories, that would be 1.63 acres. So you see that 35% only allows for that much residential development under the limited uses option. If we took it up to 85%, you can see the same with the 1st story, 2nd story, 3rd story building. And then if we took it up to 100%, it goes a little bit farther, but there's not much of a big difference. So the floor area ratio is determined by the master plan. So using 0.40 is just an example of what could be done. I know it's a complicated issue, and I hope I'm explaining it well enough. But so that's just one thing that needs to be considered if we do move forward with any type of limited use in the PRBD. But I do want to outline some benefits of the recommended changes to the PRD and how it relates to the form rather than the strict Euclidean zoning districts, like forcing buildings against the street, ensuring the vision of any plan is at the forefront of the discussion, purposely creating blocks, and placing parking in the rear for a more welcoming human scale development. So, next slide. And Frank got this picture for us. It's pretty old, but it kind of shows, what the progression has been in Dale Summit area. But as we see it, you have a few different options. As you discussed at your last meeting, you could allow R3 uses just outright in the PRBD. You could allow them as limited uses as we just discussed. We could allow R3 uses in the PRBD as conditional uses while applying PRD changes from DPZ, or of course take no action. And then also you could remand any of these options to the Planning Commission while knowing further detailed discussions will be coming in the next few weeks and months as we continue to study the Dale Summit area. And my last slide is just a come to the Dale Summit charrette. So, that's it. So I hope that presentation kind of helped you get through the memo a little, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Sure. Additional comments from staff? Anyone?
Yeah, just very quickly, after the review of the R3 inclusion into the PRBD, and council's conversation, it was pretty clear that council was interested in examining some other options for perhaps better controlling R3 uses. As was contemplated at your last discussion on this matter, that was a full inclusion of R3 into the PRBD. And there were no limited uses, there were no other restrictions that applied. And in that situation, while that made R3 uses eligible to utilize PRD development in the PRBD, it provided no additional controls. And so council had asked for what might those look like, and I believe that 2 very viable options have been presented here tonight by Lindsay in terms of the conditional use or the limited use, which already is in existence within the PRBD ordinance. So at this point, I think that staff is interested in the council conversation. I know that Mr. Bernier had an opportunity to speak with Lindsay or Mike earlier this week, and I believe that he had also provided some of his thoughts via email to members of council on this topic. But if we'll sit back at this point and let council take over the conversation and ask any questions, and we hope we're able to provide you some answers.
Okay. All right, Susan, we'll let you kick this one off. Heavy lift.
I'll be honest, I'm more confused than I was.
Oh.
That's okay, that's okay, that's, I'm getting more comfortable telling you when I'm not sure. So
As the newest member of council.
I'm avoiding that from now on. I'm not giving you that
Don't
back.
worry, they'll keep reminding
So thank
you.
thank you in advance for your patience. And I want to sort of walk back and say what I understand, that we're looking at the PRBD, and there is no residential zoning in that section.
Correct.
And the PRD defines the use in that section as an ordinance, is that correct? Am I understanding that right?
The PRD would apply to the R3 uses.
Okay, okay. So that's where I'm getting confused, because I'm sort of mixing up my sequence in my mind of how it all fits together, the layers of how it sort of works together. So we have the PRBD, and we would be allowing R3, so we'd be allowing that density, that residential density in that area that currently we can't allow residential development in that area. Okay, and R3 is fairly dense. I've seen different definitions of R3, so I wasn't really sure. I have spent a lot of time on the College Township code section of the website. Yes. Now, the other piece of this for me to understand, I'm not sure I completely understand the limited use versus the conditional use. Those are two different ways to apply the R3. And one of the concerns that's come up in discussion with Planning Commission would be sort of an unfettered R3 designation there that could result in very dense housing. It wasn't clear to me how tall the structures could be. I believe that the limited use based on the FAR could allow for up to 3 stories, and so that would increase density in terms of height. So there were some concerns about that as well. So it would help me to understand better what's council's responsibility as far as limited use versus conditional use, and what does that do in terms of better defining how R3 is developed by the developer in that area. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
So council would have more control with a conditional use than you would with a limited use.
Okay. Would council define the percentage of the FAR in the limited use?
That is still determined by the
So
master plan.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes.
Lindsay,
The
please.
DPZ master plan?
Of any master plan that
Any
someone's
master plan?
proposing.
Okay, okay, all right,
Yes.
the master plan.
Yes, that's how
Okay.
the FAR is determined.
Okay. All right. So limited use and conditional use.
Okay, so a limited use is specific to the planned research business park district zoning.
Okay.
There are permitted uses, there are limited uses, and there are accessory uses.
Okay.
So the primary uses pretty much are just, they're just permitted outright.
Got it.
Limited uses are the ones that are limited to 35% of that development. So the other percentage of that would be the primary uses or the permitted uses.
Got it.
So that is just something that would come in and be permitted.
Okay.
Whereas a conditional use is a permitted use, but it comes through a different process, whereas the governing body gets
Right,
to
the municipal
have
government.
input on any further conditions that you would like to tack on that are reasonable that you may want to see.
And that seems to be the important piece, reasonable.
Yeah,
How is
it's
reasonable
reasonable. It's
defined?
not defined,
Is that defined by the MPC?
No.
Who defines
Well,
reasonable?
ultimately, it's defined by the courts. Not being facetious, but that is really kind of the acid test. You can't be arbitrary and capricious in the application of requirements. And that's really the key, and that's what I believe is really being represented by the term reasonable.
And then the other piece that I'm struggling to understand, the timing with the Charrette and with DPC. there needs to be, I don't understand how we would fit in what would be recommended by DPC if we were to make a decision prior to the charrette and, prior to understanding some of how that code, DPC would define the code. So, right now, I'm at sort of at a crossroads, understanding that I need to understand better how the DPC form-based code would be incorporated in how we would make a decision about this particular development. So, that's where I stand now. I'd like input from.
Okay. Rich?
First off, really appreciate staff coming back with providing us some guide rail options for this, because there is, it's one of those typical, it's not an issue till it's an issue. And if we have an opportunity to put some thought points in along the process, it's very helpful. My personal lean is to the conditional, simply it's a much more deliberate process. And I think the PRD is a great tool if you can use it. And from the limited, what I was hearing is that wouldn't be an option.
That's correct, it would not.
It would not be an option. So that discourages, the deliberate process and the inability to access the PRD. And then I'll extend the other. I like that we're looking at the PRD. I think our PRD is stale and it's due for a freshening up and everything. So when you combine PRD is already a decent tool, we're going to make it a better tool. I'd like to be able to use it in this, and in particular, looking at this is one of those interim steps that we talked about. Because form-based code is going to come in and do that. We just don't want to do anything, and we're still in business until we have form-based code in place. And so just putting the protections, but still being able to move forward, it was important to me.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so there's 3 of us now tonight, so if we want to take action, we all have to agree. So I'm going to try to vet out from what I heard. So Susan, you're in favor of waiting altogether, taking no action until after the charrette? And Rich, you're comfortable with the conditional use in setting a hearing tonight?
No, I'm not saying.
Yeah, let me add a little bit of clarification here. The only way the College Township Council could set a public hearing is if in fact you reverted back to what was discussed 2 weeks ago, because which was straight R3 incorporated into the PRBD.
Okay.
Because that is what was sent to, that was actually what was, and the only thing that was remanded to the Planning Commission. The MPC requires that any potential zoning change be vetted, be discussed by the Planning Commission, and their recommendations come forward to council. So under no circumstance here, unless you were going to revert back to the full-blown R3 incorporated into PRBD tonight, anything that you do tonight will not involve setting a public hearing. So that I think is, I kind of heard that question in your statement, Susan. So I think it needs to be clarified, just so everyone understands that if council is comfortable with one approach or another that has been presented here this evening, that approach needs to go back to the Planning Commission, because they need the opportunity to review and comment and make recommendations on that approach back to you prior to you being able to set a public hearing. And knowing that beginning next Monday is the charrette process, I don't believe that there is a problem in timing for the for this process to move forward if it does tonight. By the time a remand letter is put together, the charrette will already have been completed. Planning Commission members of the public will have a lot more information available to them. These were some concerns that we heard represented by the Planning Commission representative at our last meeting about the possibility of waiting for the charrette to occur. Actually, they were expressed during our joint meeting with Planning Commission. Point here is that that will actually have occurred. And at that point in time, I think that it will simply put all of these conversations in a bit of a different light and maybe more illuminating as they move through the process.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Adam.
Right, so that was my understanding, that we weren't be setting a public hearing this evening, but staff was looking for some lean or direction.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I would concur with you, Rich, on the keeping the ball rolling type of thing, right? We know the charrette's coming up. If we can come to an agreement on a certain use, if you will, or direction we're going tonight, that gives, essentially, I would feel that would give PC basically something to immediately step into, right? Based off of what they hear from the charrette, whether it be, So personally, I'm in favor of the conditional use because if I were to rank these, I think that gives you the most control, right? I think limited use gives you moderate somewhat, and then obviously just dumping R3 into PRVD gives you low, if no, control. But I'm interested to say, with Adam's clarification, when we said, Susan, what, if that helped shape out what you're thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah, and I think that describes exactly what I would want now that I can describe that. And thank you, Rich. I was missing the understanding that having limited use meant we could not use the PRD. And the PRD, to me, at least in our first conversations, was clearly that step that we could take that would put us closer to form-based code. It was a transitional step that we could use. I understood that the first night. For some reason, I didn't understand that anymore. So I'm glad you brought me back to that. And understanding that limited use does not allow us to use the PRD leaves that off. It's not something that I think that I would consider. So I think the PRVD with the PRD and the conditional use, so I'm in agreement with Dustin and Rich. And thank everyone for helping me get there.
Excellent. So I think we have a consensus from council to move ahead with the conditional use on the PRBD. And, that stands for Plan Research and Business Park District, just in case anybody has their PRs and such mixed up.
So as an actual action item, and I don't know if you mentioned it in your memo or not, this would essentially take the form of a remand, motion to remand to Planning Commission. And if it makes everybody comfortable, you could remand it subject or conditioned upon remand letter being presented to Planning Commission after completion of the charrette.
Okay, so we have a suggested motion. Anyone willing to go at it?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
With help. To make a motion to remand to PC consideration of the PRBD change with PRD and conditional use after the completion of the charrette.
Actually, yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Need a little more language, yeah.
Okay.
Permit R3 uses in the PRBD.
Under conditional
Under
use.
conditional use, yeah.
Under conditional use.
Okay, so, yeah, maybe Mike can repeat what he heard the motion.
I heard the intent, I think, so you can wordsmith along with me here. So I think where you're headed in terms of forming a motion is to authorize staff to prepare a remand letter to the College Township Planning Commission to permit R3 uses in the planned research business, research business district by conditional use subject to their review after conclusion of the charrette process.
Yes.
That's what Susan said.
It was in there. It was pretty
all
good.
there.
The intent was there, the language, I'm still learning your language, our
No,
language.
But that was very good.
I mean, I think the motion is acceptable to say, as stated by Mike
That's
Bloom.
right, yeah.
Jen, did you get that okay? or-
Permit R3, you have it, Jen?
Yeah, where now I'm saying I can't even read my own writing, I went so fast, but go ahead, I think I.
Yeah, it's the first line of the
This
motion.
is in the PRDD by conditional use, subject to the review after the charrette, or
Right.
charrette process.
Right.
Got a second for that?
As long as Jen's good,
I'm good.
you're good. Okay. I will gladly second
All right, we'll call a question. All those in favor, please say aye.
that. Aye.
Aye. No opposed.
Thanks for
Thank you.
bearing with us.
Passes.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
No, thank
Thanks for
you.
bearing with
Gotta
us.
jump in at
Thank
some
you.
point.
No, good. That one's.
All right, moving on to new business. NB1, Center Region Regional Growth Boundary / Sewer Service Area Implementation Update. That's a pretty lengthy title.
Yes, it
Ms.
is.
Brugel.
Yes, it's my pleasure to be able to introduce Center Region Planning Agency Director Jim May, he and his staff have been laboring away at making a few updates to our sewer service area growth boundary implementation agreement. And without further ado, Jim, I'm just going to go ahead and kick it over to you. I know that we're here for comment and discussion and to provide you with some feedback this evening, so perhaps you can lead us through that.
Thank you, Mr. Brumbaugh. Good to be here, and happy to report that you're municipality number 6 that I'm visiting out of 6. So, what I want to do this evening was kind of give you a big picture overview of some of the changes that we're making, why we have the Regional Growth Boundary Sewer Service Area Implementation Agreement, and kind of some of the factors that have gone into that over the years. In your agenda packet were a couple of items. One was the RGB SSA at a glance document and the specific agreement, both in strikeout format and a clean format. So you have that. The things I wanted to touch on, though, are why we really have this agreement. And this really goes back to the original comprehensive plan in 1976. At that time, there was a policy to direct growth to certain areas, higher intensity development in areas where there were public sewer and infrastructure available. Over the years, that became formalized, and in 2006, this RGBSSA implementation agreement was agreed to by the 6 municipalities as kind of like, if we're going to expand the growth boundary and we're going to have a line, how do we go about doing that? So the goals of that were to direct higher density development to those areas, to improve the availability of preserving farmland, help preserve rural communities that did not want higher intensity development, utilize our infrastructure, not only sewer infrastructure, but roads, public water, and other public facilities that you build when you expand. Also, to align the growth of the region with the capacity that would be available at the University Area Joint Authority wastewater treatment plant. It's also to protect sensitive environmental areas outside the growth boundary and to protect source water as well. I just also want to point out that it requires participation by all 6 municipalities to do this process. So where are we today and what things have happened? Most of the new building permits in the region are issued inside the growth boundary and sewer service area. Part of that is due to this agreement. Part of it is due to the actions of municipalities that have zoning outside the growth boundary that prohibit higher density and development. The permitted average monthly capacity at UAGA is just over 10 million gallons a day. They are currently at about 5.3 million gallons a day, so there's plenty of capacity at the UAGA treatment plant. We continue to protect source water from incompatible development, and that's important for municipalities that get their public water from a well that's outside their municipality. The region has agreed that's a regional issue, so we work together to protect that for all the municipalities. And then kind of an assessment of the existing agreement. I know some of you on the council have not been through a request to expand the growth boundary source service area. It's a pretty rigorous process where we require a lot of information from the individual that wants to expand the growth boundary to show why this really has to be done. One thing that we also do is every 5 years when we do this update is we do what's called a regional development capacity report. That tells us how much development capacity is remaining inside the growth boundary and sewer service area. And we try to keep that at least 20 years. And that report that we've just finished just shows that we have at least 20 years of growth capacity based on our population forecasts. It is a complicated process, and we don't do it too often anymore, but it's not supposed to be complicated, but I know some of you don't see it on a regular basis, so it seems like it's awfully onerous, but it's not. It just gives every municipality the opportunity to participate. We continue to keep the growth boundary and the sewer service area as one boundary, even though the regional growth boundary is associated with the comprehensive plan. The sewer service area is a UAJA service area, but we keep that same line just to keep things simple for everybody. And what has remained the same in the agreement is that the initial request to expand is a local decision. So the municipality where the proposal is coming to has the ability to say, we either see merit in this and we want to move it up to the regional process, or we don't believe it's a good idea to expand, and if the local governing body does not want to move forward, the request does not move forward. So that initial request is controlled by the municipality. All municipalities participate, as I said, at the general forum level if it moves forward, and it takes 5 out of the 6 municipalities to agree to expand or to become effective. So, in summary, we're not proposing any substantial changes to the agreement. We believe it has worked effectively. Over the past 5 years, we cleaned up some of the authority and the effective date. We moved a lot of the background information out of the agreement and into that at-a-glance document that you saw that's a little bit easier for everybody to read. We also deleted a section called the limited review process and reauthorized a provision that allows municipalities to expand the growth boundary without going to the region up to 12 acres and 60 equivalent dwelling units during the 5-year period that you have. So that gives you some authority as a municipality not to have to go through the regional process for smaller requests to expand the growth boundary because they're not really a regional impact in a lot of cases. That's small enough that adjoining municipalities wouldn't see much of an impact. So in a nutshell, we're not changing much. What I'm asking for tonight, as Mr. Brumbaugh noted, was any comments or questions that you have that I can address. We'll take all the comments that we've received to date, bring them back to our Land Use and Community Infrastructure Committee and Regional Planning Commission in August, and then forward this to the General Forum for action at their August meeting as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, provide any clarification moving forward.
Yeah, sure. Adam.
Just a clarification, Jim. We're in the new iteration, what's before us, we're reauthorizing the 12-acre 60 EDUs. That, and am I correct, that had been missing in the last, or that was removed in the last implementation agreement?
Right. It was included in 2013, and
right.
it expired after 5 years, and it was not renewed, so now it's coming back in.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So we're the last one to provide comments. Anything we should be aware of before we...
Actually, nobody's had many major comments, so
okay.
It's kind of that if it ain't broke, don't break it. So
all right, excellent.
That's kind of what our philosophy is.
Oh, I'll let you, Rich, you want to kick it off? Any comments?
Sure.
Questions?
No, it's pretty clear this is primarily housekeeping for the most part, but I am glad to hear about the 60 credit. I think that's a very good tool for municipalities.
Sure.
And everything, so I'm glad that's potentially being reinstated. I'm just curious, can you think of any scenario where the RGB and the SSA would not be contiguous?
Would not be what?
Contiguous.
No. It has to, any expansion has to be contiguous to the existing growth boundary. You can't put an island out somewhere and extend public sewer out to it.
But in years past, there's big discussions about whether the RGB should be one line and the SSA should be another line. And, you know, we've kept it contiguous. It works. Is there any, you know, as we're looking down the road and we see something coming, is there any place where that doesn't make sense, complete sense?
The only time it has not made sense is if we have a situation where there's a failure of a septic system, either in a big subdivision.
Okay.
Or, for example, at Tussey Mountain.
Yeah.
The resort is on public sewer, but they're not inside the growth boundary sewer service area. They had a failure a number of years ago. There was no way to fix that with an on-lot system. So they were brought in. The existing facility was brought in and hooked into public sewer, but they can't expand anymore without going through the public hearing process.
Got it.
The other thing that we didn't want to do was provide sewer to large lot, single-family residential developments. UAJ has always tried to conserve some of their capacity for more higher density development that really needs public sewer. So unless there's a failure of a large subdivision somewhere, I don't see that happening.
Okay. Meyer Dairy, what was that?
I'm sorry, Meyer Dairy was another example.
Another,
Yes.
okay.
They had a
okay.
failure that couldn't be corrected by another on-lot system,
Okay.
so.
So exception throughout, breaking the contiguous, but
In both of those cases, DEP basically directed us
yep.
to hook it up to public sewer for health and safety reasons.
Sure. And glad they did.
Yeah, actually, it's good
so-
for the business.
But no, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Susan?
I don't have any questions. I appreciate your presentation. I appreciate anyone who can explain something so that I understand it just a little better. So this was very helpful. And it sounds like the changes you're requesting don't affect that boundary at all. And where it sits, it's more rearranging, like you said, Rich, housekeeping. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have no questions. Anything further? Thank you for coming by, Mr. May.
My pleasure.
Jim, what are the next steps then? Now that you have comments from all six,
I will.
it's going back to Lucy?
It will go back to Lucy and CRPC the first week in August, and then I'm going to request that we put on the August general forum agenda. So,
Great.
and at that meeting, we will have to have a public hearing. It'll be one of those where we have the breakout groups, so.
Okay, very good.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay. All right, NB2, Mr. Brumbaugh, why don't you lead us out on this one?
Sure. As you are aware, Ms. Carla Stilson has resigned from council effective July 1st. Her term of office technically expires January 2nd of 2004. In accordance with Pennsylvania second-class township code, the township council has 30 days from the effective date of a council resignation to fill an unexpired term of office. Based on conversations held here at a regular meeting by council on June 1st, we had recently been through a filling of an unexpired term. When Ms. Traynor was appointed to fill the unexpired term of Paul Takak, who had resigned to become our state representative. There were 8 total individuals in December of 2022 that were interviewed, who were interested, interviewed by council, who had expressed an interest in serving out the unexpired term of Mr. Takak. We were asked to solicit interest from those same individuals that had previously expressed the interest about filling out this approximately 6-month term, unexpired term of Ms. Stilson. And we did contact those individuals. Of the 7 remaining, 6 responded as to their interest. And those individuals were in alphabetical order: Chris Exarchos, Anthony Frigola, Don Hartzell, Alston Shields, Stephen Smith, and Stephen Spoonamore. And council should, you have the ability to appoint prior to the effective date of the resignation. The second-class township code is moot on appointment after receiving and accepting the resignation. It only is, provides clarity on the 30 days after the effective date of the resignation. So you folks have the ability to deliberate here this evening and make an appointment if you see fit at this time, or you would still have the ability to make an appointment as late as our July 20th meeting, given the fact that we've just canceled the advertised meeting for July 6th.
Yeah, so it's just as we advised, we had an executive session last evening, and this subject was discussed within that executive session. And I guess, my initial question is, there was a candidate, a top candidate identified, and was reached out to. Did we get confirmation on whether that candidate would be willing to accept?
We did, yes, and the answer was in the affirmative.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion, we have a recommended motion. We can deliberate if we would like. We'll also accept a motion. Susan?
I'll move to appoint Anthony Fragola to the unexpired council term of Ms. Stilson. Said term of office concludes January 2nd, 2024.
Do you have a second?
I will second.
All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion is carried.
Mr. Chair, you just comment, if I may?
Yes.
We are so fortunate to be having this discussion about 6 individuals who, any one of them would have filled the seat as well as they could, but Ms. Stilson leaves a pretty big shadow in that seat. But I'm very pleased that we've gone this direction. I think Mr. Fragola, having just recently come off of council, gives us the most opportunity to keep the ball moving. If you didn't notice, we got a lot of stuff going on. So I'm excited to work with a reformatted council. Thank you.
All right, excellent. All right, moving along to staff informatives. Anything staff would like to highlight for us? Or any questions, council, for what was provided?
I don't believe so. Thank you.
Council? Okay.
I would just offer that for those that didn't see this Center Daily Times today, this evening, that there was a dedication ceremony for the bridge that crosses Spring Creek as you depart Lamont on Pike Street towards South Atherton. That now has been legislatively named for Petty Officer John W. Coble, who was a World War II vet and a PennDOT employee who was tragically killed on the job. Took a long time to get it done, but it was lovely that there many generations of the family were there, and our representatives Benninghoff and Takak, as well as several PennDOT representatives.
Excellent.
He was originally born in Lamont.
Oh, wow. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, any other matters? Okay, accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned.